when the dust settled kind of on playoffs and you just really took a minute to look back at that OKC series, and what stood out to you the most as what needs to happen for this team to take that final step that you're looking to take?
Yeah, I think, when you get to that point in time, it's kind of really your fatal flaws rise to the top, right? And we just have to be better in a lot of little areas and habits. Certainly, ball control, if you will. Turnovers were too high. And a team like that just kind of feasted on it, and they were able to flip a game and therefore flip the series on us pretty quickly. Just being able to execute a little bit better, certainly get to a point where we can get maybe Julius and Ant some easier shots too in that execution when there's so much pressure and so much defense loading up against them.
And what do you think will be a key for having success with Julius and Nas defensively when Rudy's off the floor?
Yeah, that's one of our challenges. Was one of the things we know we have to get better at is our second unit or our non-Rudy defense. We have a pretty good body of work from last year. We feel like we know what might work. I think it's going to be a collective effort and a mindset switch when that happens. But we can't just completely reinvent ourselves either. That's very hard to do. So I think it's, again, like a little bit more on the ball kind of discipline. I thought last season, like at times our ball-contained defense was really good, and at times it was really poor. It felt like it was never really consistent. That's going to have to be on point, whether Rudy's on the floor or not. Then how we build our help, maybe, tighter in the gaps. Maybe we, have to just kind of shrink the paint in all the ways that you can. So.
A pretty clear top three in assists for you guys last year were Julius, Ant, and Mike Conley.
Yeah.
Do you expect that to change at all?
No, not really. I think that feels about right. I do think that we can get a little bit more playmaking out of Jaden. I think Dante, can pick up some assists in the flow. But of course, Rob and the guys that come off the bench might get a chance to add to that. But I think those guys will still lead us because the usage will be there for them. So.
Your conversations with Rob this summer and what the organization wants to see out of him this season, what are maybe the one or two things that you want him to focus on the most that's going to get him playing time and maybe allow him to grow his game?
Yeah, well, I think the non-negotiable is competing on defense, and I thought he did that last year. I thought that's probably where I felt he had the best kind of growth in his game, was just his ability to go out there and fight and kind of learn and just navigate some tough circumstances at times. Offensively, that'll be where we really can use what he has to offer, and that is create pace. We got to increase pace in our play. Get to the heart of the defense and create shots for his teammates. Really, I think the playmaking is what we probably need from him more than anything else. The scoring will come secondarily, and we need that change of pace guard. And so if he leans into that and gets really good at those things that he can already do well, then he should be fine.
Chris, it seems like the Nikhil role, at least in part, will be repurposed to some guys who weren't consistently in the rotation, recently drafted players. This seems interesting with your recently drafted players as they're like 18, 19, or like 24, 25. As a coach, when a player's inexperienced in getting gameplay, how is it different managing a literally younger player versus an older player like, Terrence or Jalen or some of your 2A guys?
Well, I think the first thing is those younger players need to figure out who they need to be and who they are as players, right? I think that's part of the process that you have to kind of accommodate for. And generally a guy who's older, 24, 25, even 23, he has a better sense of who he is as a player and what he does well, and kind of leans into that a bit more. And the younger players are still trying to maybe kind of play the way they've always played, but that's not always what's needed or what's best. So I think that's the first thing, and then just trying to protect them from situations where they can lose their confidence as a younger player.
Coach, what's the next step in Anthony Edwards' game that you want to see him grow the most in?
So I think you got to continue to build off what you did last season. So continue to shoot the ball and commit to the 3-point shot. Certainly can get back to I think finishing at a high level and getting out and getting back to, like, some of my themes for Ant is getting back to being a little bit better at the things that you're already good at, that you had been good at as a young player, and then the stuff that you add to your game is an accent to it. Closing games, certainly, we went through a lot of lessons last year where we had a lot of opportunities to learn closing games. That's got to be one. And also just, continue to, I think, develop his playmaking and understanding how to manipulate the floor with the ball in his hands. I think he's got a really good feel for that now, having been through it a couple years. Now he's just got to execute and complete the plays that are there in front of him. And then just, continue to be that every night player at a high level that we know he can be, which is what you need to do if you want to be MVP in this league. And I certainly think he's got the DNA for it. He just has to really fully embrace it.
Chris, the ball pressure you guys had in Game 3 of the West Finals last year was probably some of the best you had all year.
Yeah.
But that felt more like an outlier, where 2 years ago it was more of the norm. How do you get back to establishing that, which is probably what this team is best at, as kind of the identity?
Yeah, I thought that's a great point. I think it points to the inconsistency we had on ball pressure, ball contain. Large part of our identity has been that when we're doing it. As you can see around the league, they're allowing it more, so you have to kind of take advantage of it. And it's a major point of emphasis as we start training camp, is to kind of reestablish that presence on the ball. So,
Chris, you mentioned not needing to reinvent yourself, but when you get so close 2 years in a row, is there anything particular in your mind that maybe needs to happen this year that hasn't happened, in order to just get you guys to that next step?
No, there's a bunch of stuff that has to happen. I think, we're not going to abandon our core principles, but we have to look at doing things slightly differently for a variety of reasons. Incorporating younger players, incorporating inexperienced players, accommodating for players, being able to continue to help Rudy so, he can still be the force that he is, but doesn't have to carry all the burden. Defensively, how do we maximize him offensively? There's just like a lot of places that we can go to look at things where we can get better at. So that's where we start. But the non-negotiables still have to be the same. So,
Chris, you touched on Jaden earlier briefly. Just how do you see his role evolving this year?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I think he needs to get back to being an all-league defender. I think he hopefully is personally motivated that he was left off those lists last season. We know that's the type of player and impact that he has for our team. Offensively, they're looking for opportunities to direct the ball to him more. We know that he can have a good partnership with Rudy. He's got a game where he can get to his shot and get it kind of off over people because of his size and his high release point. And we need him to kind of lean into being a playmaker when he does have the ball in his hands, to make sure that, he's getting the ball out, finding open people. So,
continuity's been a term thrown around a lot this summer. From like a head coaching perspective, just how valuable is it to be able to try to build off of what mostly the same guys from last year did, rather than trying to go around the room and kind of reintroduce new guys to new teammates?
Yeah, well, it's, as long as you have good players and you believe in your team, you want continuity, right? So we're fortunate there. Now it's about just getting, like we talked about, getting better at the habits, being more demanding of yourself when you start the season. Exactly what it should look and feel like. And then from there, you have to be ready to adjust. But those adjustments will be based on, the things that you're trying and whether they actually do work or not, oftentimes, the health of the team and these types of things. But continuity is only good if it pays dividends early. Other than that, you're just like everybody else. So, Not too much. I mean, I know it's there. It's not going away. But focus mostly on ourselves. It's really kind of hard to predict. I think you have a feeling of how you might be as a team. It's really hard to predict sometimes how that stacks up against such a tough landscape of the West. I do believe that it just continues to get harder and harder. And I do believe that, again, like a 42-40 record in the West might be really, really good, depending on, how it shakes out. If there is this as much parity as there could possibly be. And, seemingly the West gets harder. I don't know how it happens, but every year it just feels like it gets a little harder or a little deeper, Thanks.